Hello. Sound check, sound check. Good to see everyone here. Where did my chat go? Oh, there it goes. Cool. All right. Cool. It's good to see everyone here. Let's go ahead and dive into the slides. I mean, there's not much slides today, but just we'll still get a quick overview of what we're going to be doing today. So yeah, we're almost at the end of our boot camp here. Wow, I can't believe we're already on the 20th session. That's kind of nuts. Makes me wonder if I miscounted somewhere along the line, because it feels like it was just a few days ago that we started on session 1. So today's a little bit different. Today, as you all might know, we're not covering a specific topic as usual. Instead, we're going to be building a project together. And this project is kind of, we'll call it like a mini capstone project. And my hope is that this project will help us understand how all these different technologies that we've learned, how they all work together. And also just fun to build something neat and kind of new. I mean, AI is all the rage, of course, and now as software engineers, which all of you are, as software engineers, we're in a unique position to make applications on top of these AI technologies, even if you don't know anything about AI. So that's kind of what I want to demonstrate today. So we did already build an AI app a few weeks ago. I think it was like a poem generator or like some kind of, it was a GPT-3 app. And today I thought we'd go in towards the AI image generator direction. So this will be a learning experience for me as well. I actually haven't used the DALL-E API really, so this will be just a struggle for me as well. So that'll be fun. But yeah, let's just go ahead. Enough talking. Let's just go ahead and dive into it. So yeah, the slides today are pretty bare. We're just going to talk about like high level, what are we building? Then we're going to, of course, hop into our trusty whiteboard. And then we're going to talk about like the high level steps. Then we're going to actually build it. And then, we'll talk about homework and QA. But for the most part, 90% of today is just going to be me coding and talking while I code. Okay, so the problem that we want to address is that it's hard or expensive to get a nice portrait of your pet. Say you have a pet like Schnauzer or something, and you want a nice picture of Schnauzer that like an artist would draw, and yeah, let's say maybe you don't know any artist friends or can't commission anybody to draw it for you. We'll just see if AI can help us do it. So our solution for this problem is to build a web app that uses the DALL-E API to make it super easy to get a custom portrait of your pet in your favorite art style. So first, let's go ahead and pull up the DALL-E API. I think am I logged in already? I might not be logged in. Oh, let me go ahead and actually switch to my other browser because I think I'm already logged in there. And I'll just show you really quick like what it is we're going to be building. Okay, here. Let me go ahead and pull this up. Okay. Darn. I'm not logged. All right, they logged me out again. 1 second. Can't share my my login info on stream. Okay, there we go. So this is the DALL-E app, right? Some of you are familiar with it. Some of you may not be. But basically, DALL-E, it gives you this text box where you type in a description of what image you want, and it generates for you. So on their landing page, you can see that they have examples of this already. As you can see, like this is the prompt that's given to DALL-E. So a 3D render of a cute tropical fish in an aquarium on a dark blue background, digital art. And you get this drawing. So for our app, basically what we're going to do is, we're going to assume that our user doesn't know how to write prompts like this. So we basically want to make it so a user can just type in, say like a brown, I don't know, maybe I should have picked Schnauzer because I can't spell Schnauzer off the top of my head. I'm just going to say like a lab, right? Let's say a black lab named Carl, Labrador. Did I spell Labrador? That's not how you spell Labrador. I can't spell any dog. Labrador. No, it is how you spell Labrador. All right, we're good. A black Labrador named Carl, And so this is what our user would type in. And what our app is going to do is basically add some styling on top of it. So let's say we let our users choose that they want a painting of their black lab in the style of Picasso. We could say like a black lab named Carl, painted by Picasso. Actually, I don't like Picasso. He's problematic. I'm gonna use maybe like I don't know, what can I use? Let's say Monet. Let's just say Monet. Painted by Monet. So like we would let our user enter this description, and then maybe we let them choose like an artist they want to emulate, and then they select that. So this is basically what we're going to pre-fill for our user, and then we hit generate. And so DALL-E is going to take some time to generate the image, or images is going to generate multiple, and cool. So it gives us back these images. So it looks pretty good, right? Like if you had a black lab named Carl, painted by Monet, like these are not bad, right? These seem pretty legit. So this is basically what we're going to try to build for our users today. I don't know how far we're going to get. Like we don't have a ton of time, and it takes some time to build a project like this, but we're going to get as far as we can, and we'll see how it goes. So yeah, this is basically the low tech version of what we're building today. We're just building like a specific interface specifically for people to generate pet photos. So yeah, okay, cool. So hopefully that makes sense. Oops, that's the wrong thing. Cool. So let's go ahead and dive into our whiteboard so we can visualize what our app is going to look like. So I like Excalidraw. This is, I think, a mock-up from last time. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of some of this stuff that we don't need. All right, this is from our weather app from a long time ago. Let's go ahead and clean this up. Yeah, that's great. I'm just going to delete it all. All right, so this is our web app. And what I'm envisioning is it will look kind of similar to the DALL-E interface that we just looked at, but it's going to be a little bit simpler, right? Because we're assuming that our audience is lower tech and they just want like a photo of their pet. So here, maybe we have like a big description box. So this is where the placeholder text might say like type a brief description of your pet. Maybe say like breed, color, size, etc. or something. So this is where the user would type in the information about their pet. So in our example, we'll use the black lab Carl. So that's what they would type in here. And then maybe under this, we have like a select box. And this is like, maybe the select box is like select the art style you want or something. Let me make this a little better. So this might be like a drop-down menu. And then let's say like we have a little, I don't know, I'm just going to draw like a triangle. This is not the best way to draw a triangle, but there we go. So we have a little triangle. This is going to be like our drop down. Oops. Okay, there we go. not amazing, but it'll do. Cool. So we have our triangle for drop down. Let's move that here. This is not going well. There we go. All right, so we have a drop down, and then let's say we can let our users select what kind of style they want. So maybe by default, it's like, I don't know, they could say like pixel art as the default style. And maybe if they click this drop down, it opens up like a bunch of other options. Like, I don't know, like pixel art is the first one. What else? Like Picasso, Monet, I don't know, Rembrandt, Da Vinci. I don't know. I'm just listing off random artists, but you get the gist. Maybe like, I don't know. Oh God, I'm blanking on his name. Yeah, so you get what I mean. I don't need to write this full list, but basically we will provide a list of options that the user can select for styles. So this way the user doesn't have to like type in all this information themselves. We just pass it in for them, make it easy. Okay, so that's basically it. It's basically just these two elements, and then maybe like a generate button, like this is what they would actually click, generate, to actually generate the image. So let me label this because I am probably not going to recognize this later. I'll make it easier for myself. So this is a drop down, say drop down list, and then this is a text area input, and this is our button. And then maybe after they generate this, we show their image like down here or something. Maybe I'll just put some text for now, like image goes here. This is just a placeholder, but basically this is where we would put their image. Yeah, so that's basically it. It's pretty straightforward. And in terms of like front end, let's talk about the back end really quick. So basically whatever we type in and whatever drop down we get, we basically have to pass that. When they click generate, we have to pass that to our back end. And then our backend is going to make a call to OpenAI. So let's draw this flow out over here. Maybe I won't use maybe I'll use like a diamond instead. So client user like types in info, clicks submit. So that's like on the client side. So this is the client. So after this happens, then they send this information to the backend, which is over here. So maybe say server. So they send this information to our server. There we go. And our server is going to basically send this information to OpenAI. So we're going to send this to DALL-E API. DALL-E API. This is going to give us an image, and then DALL-E is going to send back our image. And then we send the image back to the front end. So let me label this. So image shows up on front end. Send DALL-E API request. That's what we're going to send to DALL-E. And then they send back the actual image. DALL-E sends back image. Okay, kind of rough, but you hopefully get the idea here of our flow. So this is like our architecture diagram on the right, and then this is our front end on the left. So, I'm not the best artist, so forgive me if this is a little bit confusing, but hopefully this gives you a basic idea of what we're going to be building. Okay, let's move forward. So the stack of technologies that we're going to use for our project, aka our tech stack, we covered this in our last lecture on Thursday, but we are going to be using the T3 stack for this. So the T3 stack, for anybody that's not familiar, the T3 stack consists of TypeScript, Tailwind, and TRPC. Those are the 3 T's. So we probably are going to use TRPC today. I know it'll be many of your first times like learning TRPC, but it's pretty straightforward. It's very similar to how like the Next.js like API works. It's just slightly different, so we'll talk about that. But hopefully the learning curve isn't too high, even though we are going to be introducing a new technology here. Hopefully, since if you've already like built backend endpoints before in Next.js, hopefully TRPC doesn't feel like a foreign language or anything. So that's going to be our main stack. So React, Next.js, TypeScript, Tailwind, TRPC. And of course, Next.js does use Node, so Node is kind of included in this list as well. And then we're going to use the DALL-E API. So the DALL-E API is what is actually going to use AI to generate the image, right? We're not training the AI ourselves. We're using the API. Okay, so let's go over the high-level steps. So we're going to first, we're going to set up our T3 stack with the T3 template. We don't need to set up Tailwind. I don't know why I added this step. I guess I'm just so used to adding Tailwind to projects, but the T3 stack already comes with Tailwind. So we actually basically could skip this step. We'll need to get an API key for DALL-E. I'm like, my typing's all over this place. Just say API key for DALL-E. So if you don't have an OpenAI account, I encourage you to go create one maybe now, which will allow you to get an API key. Then we're going to code out the front end, and then we're going to code out the back end, and hopefully it all goes well. I have high hopes for this. All right, let's go ahead and begin. So we're going to go ahead and click on this link, which will give us a link to the T3 app repo, and I'm going to share this link in chat too if anybody wants it. So this will give you all the instructions of how to get the project set up down here in the Getting Started section. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up my terminal. and let's get started. So I'm going to go ahead and first run this script to create the T3 app template. So I'm going to navigate to my Bootcamp projects folder. Yep, I'm in my Bootcamp projects folder. So I'm going to copy this command, copy that, paste it in here. Okay, what would your project be called? Let's call this like a Dolly pet. Yeah, I'm just going to do Dolly pet. Will you be using TypeScript or JavaScript? We're going to be using TypeScript. But remember, even if you choose JavaScript, it's going to choose TypeScript for you anyway, so this is kind of a fake question. Okay, what packages would you like to enable? We're not going to really be using NextAuth today. Like, we're not going to be touching the database too much today. I would love to, but I don't know if we have time. I guess let's just enable all of them anyways, just to have them. Yeah, we're definitely going to use Tailwind. We're probably going to use TRPC. We might not touch Prisma or NextAuth today, but if you do want to make this app real, then, you know, with these enabled, it'll be pretty easy to add like user accounts and all that. So let's just leave those in. So make sure these are all selected and then click enter. Would you like to initialize a new Git repository? If you plan on deploying this, then I highly encourage you to choose yes. And would you like to run npm install? Once again, yes. Okay, cool. Let's let that run. Okay, cool. So that's running. Let's go ahead and get our code editor set up. Whoa. All right, so this is left over from our last project. All right. Okay, cool. So our project is set up. Now we just have to open it in our editor. It also says to run this command, npx prisma db push. This is not 100% important for us because, like I said, we're not really touching database as much today. Today is really just focused on like front end and back end. So we'll run this, but yeah, we're not really gonna do too much Prisma stuff today. Maybe we do a part two. We'll add like more database calls, but okay, cool. I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of this terminal now since it's already like we've already set up a project. And now I'm gonna open that folder that I just created. Let's open it here. So Bootcamp projects, Dolly pet. Yep. Let's go ahead and open that. Yes, I trust the authors. All right. So we have our packages installed. We have all our stuff. Let's go ahead and open up our terminal here. And then I'm going to run that command that they told us to run. So I think it's like npx prisma db push. So this command basically goes in your Prisma folder and it looks at your schema for Prisma. In this case, the Prisma schema is already pre-populated with a lot of stuff that was given to us by NextAuth. So all this stuff down here, like under this part necessary for NextAuth, this is all for like authentication. So if you want to add user accounts and all that, they've basically set up all the database stuff for you, like user like table and all that, which is really nice. But we're probably not going to have time to touch this today. But just wanted to point that out there. Okay, so this basically just pushes our schema and loads it into our SQLite DB, which is good. And now let's go ahead and run our app. So npm run dev, and I'm gonna go ahead and put the editor on the right, and I'm gonna open the app on the left here. So, and I just realized that my mouse pose is showing up on the wrong screen. So let me go ahead and fix that. There we go. Now you should be able to see my typing. Okay. Hello from TRPC. So yeah, this is like the base code we get so far. All of this is in this file, index.jsx or tsx. And so this is going to feel a little quick because this might be your first time like really working with TRPC and TypeScript, so it might feel overwhelming. So before we like code anything of our own, let's take a second to kind of go through the code that's already been given to us, and that might help us demystify some of this TypeScript and TRPC stuff. So basically, what you need to know about TRPC is that it's very similar to how we think about API calls, except there are now two new terms that I want you to be familiar with. And these terms are query, so query, Query, and mutation, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles mutation. Um, so a query is basically it's a type of call that lets you read data from a database, right? It's like it just grabs data from a database or some kind of like endpoint. And mutation is how you write or update data. So in this case, here in their example, they basically have a use query that they're calling to some backend endpoint, and then the data that they get from the API, which they're saving in this variable hello, they're rendering it here by showing hello.data. So this is a little confusing to me as well, because like I haven't looked at this boilerplate in a long time. But I bet if we check out what the endpoint looks like, we might get some clarification. So it's at api.example.hello. So let's go to, excuse me, let's go look at utils, API. So once again, this is all set up for us, so we're not going to touch this too much, but this is basically what sets up TRPC. But I believe in our server, so TRPC runs off routers, and if we look at the example.ts file, so this example.ts, this file, example.ts, that is the same thing as this part of the call. So api.example. So .hello means it's going to look inside our example.ts and look for a function that says hello. This might all seem very confusing, and I realize it like the naming is not helping a lot, but this is just to give you a really quick rundown of like what TRPC is doing. So see here how we have a call. Here, I kind of cut this off, but here you see we have a call called hello, and how it matches the call we have in our front end. So example.hello. And if you go to example.ts, you can see that hello is right here. So basically, what it's saying here is that they're defined a query called hello that takes in an input, and the input looks like an object, right? Is the object with a text parameter, and all it does is just return hello with the input text attached. So if the input text is like world, it's going to return hello world, right? So very, very stupid, not really a real example, but this is basically to demonstrate what is going on here. So in the front end, we send the words from TRPC. And that's why after from TRPC gets sent to this endpoint, we get back hello from TRPC. And so that comes back, and then we actually render that in our app with this line, hello.data, or hello.data.greeting. And that's what you can see here, hello from TRPC. Kind of confusing. I realize this might not be the best example to TRPC, but I think as we go on, it'll get a little bit more simple. Honestly, I think at this stage, just because we just introduced TypeScript, maybe it'll be a little overkill to use TRPC for this app, just because we only will have like one real endpoint. And I know you guys are a little bit more comfortable with Next.js endpoints, so I might make a on-the-fly decision here and actually say, the TRPC stuff I encourage you to check out, but maybe for simplicity, we actually just worry about our like Next.js API calls, like in here, to make it a little bit easier. So, anyways, let's continue. So here's our basic starter app so far. We need to basically delete all of this stuff and make way for our own code. So let's see, what can we do here? Okay, yeah. So let's just basically get rid of all this code. The head stuff, this is just like metadata. You're welcome to leave this if you want. But basically, I want to delete everything inside main, essentially. So let's get rid of everything inside main and replace it with our own. So you can keep this the current existing class name for main, but inside main, let's select this and delete it all. So let's get rid of this. Okay. So let's just replace this with, so we're going to be putting together our front end now, which looks something like this. We have like a text area box, a drop down, and then we're gonna hit generate. So to make ourselves, to make our lives easier, we're gonna use Tailwind UI, which is my favorite UI component library, and we're gonna use the free version just because want to make it. I know not everyone has the paid version, so we're gonna try to do this with just the free version. So we need a well, basically we should have a title first. I missed this, but we should put the title of our app at the top. AI power or AI pet portrait generator. Let's go ahead and add that in first. So at the top of the page, we can just maybe put in, let's see. Yeah, that's fine. Let's go ahead and do H1 and say AI pet portrait generator. Save that. Let's go back to our code. Oh, the text is dark, so that's why it's not showing up super well. Let's by default make this text white. So class name equals text white. Okay, that's a little better, a little easier to see. Let's make this a lot bigger too. So text like 3XL. Let's make it bold as well. So font bold. Okay, there we go. That's a little better. So we have our text, and then now we need our text area. So let's go ahead and go to Tailwind to grab a pretty clean looking one. Maybe go to input groups. Okay, they give us this example, which I think is fine. It's like oh, okay, it's 2 inputs. This is like not really what we want. Ideally, we want like one of these, but we're going with the free version here, so beggars can't be choosers. Maybe we can, an easier way for us to do this is actually go to the form layouts components, and what we could do is change this to React. So we grab the React code, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to only copy the code for this about section, because this is basically what we want, right? We want like a text area, so it's like a little bigger, but we don't need anything else. So that's all I'm going to grab here. So let's click on code, and we scroll down. Okay, so we can see where the about code is here. It says about, and this is the text area. So let's just copy all of this. Yoink. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a component for this, because that is best practice. Also, because this file is already pretty long with a bunch of stuff that we didn't write. So breaking things into components just makes our lives a little bit easier. So I'm going to go ahead and go into source and create a new folder for our components. So source, new folder, components. And then here I'm going to create a new file, and let's call this text area, I guess. Text area.txx. We're going to paste in our text. Oops, sorry, not paste it in. First, we need to define our component. So export, well, I guess, let's keep it consistent with how we have it in here. Okay, so they do it const as their way of creating components. So we'll do the same thing here. So const text area equals, oops, nope, that's not how you do it. Equals, what did I say here? Oh, they have the next page thing. I guess that's fine. That's not important for us. Const text area, and then we're going to return, and we're going to paste that code that we copied from a Tailwind right here. So I'm going to paste that in here, and then we need to export it. So export default text area. Okay. So we have our text area code, and we haven't changed any of the text yet. Let's have it so there's a label, and then there's like a description of the text. Let's just leave that for now. We'll replace that later. For now, let's go ahead and take the component we just created and put it in our app. So we're gonna put it right under the H1. So we're gonna add text area, and it should auto fill for us because it's smart like that. Text area, let's save that. Let's go to our code. Okay, so we have like this nice looking text area, except it's not that nice looking because the text is kind of, we have a dark background and our text is dark. So, I don't like this background. I'm actually just gonna make it a white background. So I'm gonna get rid of the background code that's already been included for us. And I'm gonna change the text here back to dark. So I'm gonna get rid of this text white, save this. And that's a little better. All right, it's not perfect, but this will work for now. Let's also add some padding or like let's add some margins after this title because we don't want these two to be scrunched up against each other. So the H1, I'm going to do margin bottom to push the thing under it down. So I'm going to say margin bottom, like, I don't know, 6 arbitrary amount. All right, that's decent. That works. Cool. So the form actually looks kind of funky, and I realized that we might need a Tailwind plugin. Yeah, so when you're using forms in Tailwind, by default, they don't include like form styling, which is why, you know, their form looks like this, but our form doesn't look the same, right? And it's because we're missing this Tailwind plugin. So let's take a sec to install this really quick, and then the styling should be fixed. So I'm going to copy this, and all we need to do is npm install it. So I'm going to shut down my server. I'm going to run npm install, paste that thingy. Ideally, you should save it as a dev dependency because this is like config stuff, so it's best to save it as a dev dependency. And you can do that by saying -- save dev here, about down here. And click enter. All right, so that's installed. Now we just need to follow these instructions and add this package that we installed to our Tailwind config. So let's go ahead and copy this line. Let's go to our Tailwind config, which should be in the root of our project, so right here. And as you can see, all we need to do is take this plugin and add it into the plugin section like this. So we save this. Cool. So now Tailwind is set up with the forms plugin, which will make our forms look less ugly. So let's spin up our server and take a look at the difference. So it's running. Okay, so it's our server's up. Let's refresh our page. Okay, so as you can see, there's a little flash there, but as you can see, now our form looks a lot better. So you need those plugins if you're going to build forms in Tailwind. Okay, so this is going to be the description of the pet. That's fine. We'll change the text later. For now, let's add our select field, right? Because we want a select drop down as well. Let's go ahead and go to Tailwind components, go to select menus, and perfect. They've given one to us for free. So let's go ahead and copy the code for this. So copy, and we're gonna basically create another component here. So components, create a new component. Let's call this, I don't know, select. So let's paste the code that we just copied. Let's change the name of the component from example to select. And as you can see now, we're getting a bunch of errors. So this is where we are going to start to pay attention to TypeScript. Because remember, this code that we copied is meant to be used in a JavaScript React file, right? It's supposed to be used in JSX. But we're using TypeScript, right? We're using TSX. And one of the things that TypeScript hates, or straight up just doesn't allow you to do most of the time, is TypeScript hates when you pass in arguments to a function and they're not typed. So in this case, TypeScript is angry because it says, hey, we didn't do it, but Tailwind did this for us. But it's like, hey, you are defining a parameter for this function that you did not assign an explicit type to. So that's why it says it implicitly has an any type. It's basically saying, like, we don't know what this is. This could be a list of strings. This could be a list of like Booleans. What is this? In this case, this function, class names, is just a fancy utility function that, let's see if I can show an example. So the class names, here's it in an action, right? It basically takes in like class names and it combines them together. It makes it easy to like create a very, very long string of class names and combine it together. So that's what class names does. So it basically takes in an array of strings. So to say, or to tell Tailwind that class is an array of strings, I believe all we need to do here is say colon, and then we can say string brackets. So this is saying to TypeScript that classes is an array of strings. So as you can see, TypeScript is no longer angry about this message. So that's good. So that's one TypeScript error down, but we have a lot more, right? We have this one, which is saying, once again, it's an argument for a function, and it's complaining that you didn't type it, right? That's why it says this argument has an any type. So this is like the most common TypeScript error, right? This commonly happens when you take JavaScript code and then paste it in a TypeScript file, and you get these errors. So this is a very common thing you'll have to do. And to fix this, yeah, we just have to, once again, type it. So we're going to say colon, and we're going to open up brackets because we're basically going to, type this whole object. And we're going to say open is a Boolean. I'm assuming it's a Boolean. So I'm going to say Boolean. Okay. So that error is gone. Looks like TypeScript satisfied there. We have more errors. This time we have a different one. It's saying, hey, selected could possibly be undefined. This one's a pretty easy fix for the most part. All we need to do, and this might be a little funky for people new to TypeScript, or just even new to TypeScript, is you can put a question mark after a variable that could be undefined to say it's like conditional. This is basically going to make it okay even if selected is undefined, because it won't throw an error when it checks the avatar, right? Basically, this whole line is saying, hey, if selected exists and is defined, grab the avatar. So it makes it type safe, right? If you don't have this question mark, it's going to be like, hey, what if selected is undefined and we select avatar of undefined? That's going to throw an error. So that's what TypeScript's warning you against. But with this exclamation mark, you're protecting TypeScript, or you're protecting it by saying, hey, only grab the avatar if selected is defined. So this question mark is very helpful. Let's move on. So we have another same thing here, right? Select is possibly undefined. Once again, all you need to do is add an exclamation mark, and yeah, TypeScript is happy. Let's keep scrolling down. We have more TypeScript errors, but this is nothing we haven't looked at already, right? Once again, we just have to type that active is a Boolean. How do I know it's a Boolean? Well, I mean, one, by the name, I'm guessing this is like active or not active, so that's a Boolean, right? Also, if we see how it's used here, active, question mark, something else, like this looks like a Boolean, right? Or a conditional or something. So I'm gonna say active is a Boolean. Yep, and that error goes away. Finally, or maybe not finally, but we also have to do this down here. Selected is, what is selected again? Oh yeah, selected is gonna be one of these users. So we'll probably have to create a type for each of these users, because yeah, it's just gonna make our lives a lot easier, because selected is not just like a Boolean or a number, it's like an object, right? So whenever you have a type that's an object, you kind of have to define it manually. So I'll show you what I mean here. Oh, we also have to deal with these errors, but we'll get to that in a second. So let's define a type for each object in people. So maybe call it person. Why not? So type person equals colon, because it's an object. Or sorry, not colon, double curly braces. So person has an ID field, a name field, and an avatar field, right? Anything else? Yeah, that's basically it. ID, name, avatar. So ID is a number, right? So ID is number, colon. Name is a string, so string, colon. And avatar is also a string. Okay, so now we have to tell TypeScript that people is a list of persons, right? As you can see, TypeScript has already inferred that people looks like this, is an array that looks like this. But in this case, we want to be explicit. You always want to be explicit when you're dealing with objects in TypeScript. So basically what we're going to say is, hey, TypeScript, that is right. Like, you are right about people, but we want to be very explicit here. So we're going to say colon. People is an array of persons, essentially. So now if you hover over people, you can see that it's updated its type definition to connect to our own. So why do this? Well, this by itself isn't very useful, but if you look down here, now we can say, hey, selected, each value of selected is going to be a person, right? So this is a lot easier than saying, like, redefining, instead of saying person, you could also say like ID number, name, string, avatar, string, right? You could write all this again, but the point of us defining it up here is that we don't have to write that every single time, right? We just define it once and use it multiple times. So that's why I said it like this. Okay, so that's one out of the way. Now, once again, we have active, which is a Boolean. So active is Boolean. Cool. So yeah, okay, that works. That works for now. Let's keep going. Okay, so we have no more TypeScript errors down here, but now we have these errors at the top, which is basically because we did not install these packages, right? Headless UI is a package that's frequently used with Tailwind UI stuff. this is basically like utility functions, utility components and stuff that we need. And this is an icon library, right? Because they have a check icon, a chevron, up and down icon. I don't even think we're going to use these icons, but for now, let's just install these packages so that these errors go away. So let's install headless UI first. So we can basically I think we can just copy and paste this. Let's shut down our terminal. And we're going to say npm install, paste headless UI. And just because I don't want to run npm install twice, I can, on the same line I'm running my npm install, I can say space. And I'm also going to say we're going to install hero icons / React. So let's click enter. Okay, so looks like those installed correctly. And now, as you can see, our errors are gone. But now we're getting more errors. That's okay. We can go ahead and... okay, it looks like that headless UI might have their own type definitions that conflict with ours. That's not a problem. Let's go ahead and spin up our server. Let's get rid of our own typing and see what the actual issue is. Okay, so it basically went away. So what happened there was like, before installing the package, I assumed that the right way to fix the error was to properly assign the types of select and active. But what happened when we installed that package was that the package came with its own type definitions. So TypeScript was complaining because it was saying, hey, this package already has type definitions, and what you defined basically conflicted with what they said. So once I removed my own definitions, it's fine now because, as you can see, yeah, I guess I was wrong about selected. Selected was not equal to a person is actually a Boolean. And, we didn't define this, right? Headless UI, their developers define these type definitions. So kind of confusing, but this is just one of the things you frequently have to deal with when you're working with TypeScript. Cool. So let me go ahead and do that. So now we have no more errors, right? And I know that because problems down here, before it showed a number of problems, now there's no problems. So we're good. Let's go ahead and now place our select on our app. So I'm going to go back to our main app, add the select we just made. Let's take a look. Yeah. Oh, the page didn't refresh. Okay, cool. So there we go. We have our select now, and it works. But we don't want it to say names. We wanted to say, art styles or whatever. So now we're gonna actually update our UI. Let's add some spacing too. Like these, once again, shouldn't be stuck next to each other. Maybe what we'll do is, instead of adding a margin bottom to every item, let's just make it so that all three of these elements are separated equally. And an easy way to do that is basically, first we're going to get rid of the MB6 here. On a flex element, you can say gap, right? And gap will basically evenly space everything that's in that flex element. So we can say gap 6, which will basically put 6 units of spacing. Yeah, see, it will put 24 pixels specifically in between the header, the text area, and the select. So let's save this. And as you can see, everything gets spaced a little bit better. Still not perfect, but we're not going for look here. We're going for functionality. So let's go ahead and edit this copy really quick. So instead of about, we're going to say maybe describe your pet. And then the placeholder you want to replace with maybe an example of what you should type. So I say I don't know, a black labra. Let's do labradoodle this time. Labradoodle. A small black labradoodle. Are there even any black labradoodles? I don't even know. Maybe it's gray. A small gray labradoodle named Billy with I don't know, lopsided ears. Is that a thing? All right, so that's the example that we're providing in our placeholder, and then maybe we don't need this. I think just the label text and this placeholder is sufficient, so we can get rid of this little paragraph down here. Okay, that's a little better. Size is kind of messed up, but that's okay. Maybe we can just give this. Oh, actually, Yeah, I think that's fine. We can make this whole thing a little bit bigger. Um, but you know what, that this will do for now. Let's maybe add like a full width on the div and see if that works. Oh, well, that's a little bit too big. Maybe we do like, I don't know, width 1/2. Sure, that works. That's fine. And okay, so that's the description. Now let's go into the select. Oh, okay. Let's go into our select, and basically we want to change this text to say like, you know, that this is a art style. So let's go down here. Where'd it go? Assigned to, yeah. So we want this to say like preferred art style or something. Okay, that's fine. It's like, you know, ideally I don't want this to be centered. I want this to be like in line with this, but we're gonna move fast here, so might not be able to achieve everything I want. That's fine. This should also be bigger width as well, but you know, whatever. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and replace this with our own data. So we also actually don't even need an avatar because, like, you know, we're not gonna have an avatar. So we need to change that. Maybe we just start by like deleting all of these. Okay, and we should probably change the name because this is not people anymore. This is like styles, art styles. Let's say art styles, and then instead of person, this is gonna be like a style, right? This is just like one style or art style. And we're gonna get rid of the avatar in our type. So we don't want to, you know, we only want the name and the ID. Okay, so we changed that name, and yeah, we have now a bunch of errors, but that's because we need to update the naming. No problem. For our first art style, let's say ID1, and then name, let's say, I don't know, cyberpunk. So our first art style, cyberpunk, ID2, name, pixel art, 8-bit or something, ID3, photorealism, ID4. You know, we can add more later. Let's just add a couple for now. Monet or Monet, ID5, Rembrandt. Something like that. I probably didn't spell Rembrandt correctly, but you know, whatever. All right, so now let's save that. We have an error. Let's go ahead and update our variables. So before it was people, now it's art styles. So art styles. Oh, so right now it's defaulting to the fourth element in art styles. That's fine. Okay, so now it's complaining because it's saying, hey, like you know, we are asking for an avatar, but we deleted the avatar because we no longer want that. So let's actually just get rid of this whole span. Or wait, no, actually we just want to get rid of this image. Sorry. So we delete that. Okay, change this to art styles. Person, the variable name doesn't matter, but yeah, this is technically not a person anymore. Let's change this to art style. Art style. Art style. A lot of updating. Once again, we no longer have an image, so we can go ahead and delete this. Art style. Okay, so now we have no more problems. So that's good. Let's go ahead and save that. Cool. So now we have our basic front end, right? So art style, they can choose like, well, it's kind of cut off. Let's make this width a little bit bigger because this is kind of small right now. Let's see what's a good way for us to do that. List box button. Maybe if we do width full here. Okay, so that's good. Instead of width full, let's do width 1/2 to match. Yeah, so now we have the same width as the box above. So consistent, and yeah, as you can see, they can just type in whatever. Cool, that works. Okay, so far so good. Yeah, the styling could of course use some work here, but let's continue. Last thing we need is a button, so let's just grab a button from Tailwind UI. I think if I just do Command F button. Okay, here we go, buttons. Duh, no, they're all locked. That's okay. We'll steal a button from somewhere else. We could take a button from the modal, I guess, component, or we can take it from, or we could just like build our own. But you know, who's got time for that? Okay, I like this. I'm gonna take the one from the sign in page. So I clicked on sign in registration. I'm gonna grab the component, and all I want is the button. So I'm gonna scroll down to the bottom, grab this button right here. Yep. I'm gonna grab. I'll just grab the button itself. Just copy that. We're gonna create a new component. So button. Oops. I'm so used to my Vim bindings, and I forgot that they don't work in this editor. Okay, so button. So we're gonna say const button equals all the stuff. Return. Paste the stuff we just took. We need to import the lock closed icon, so we can just grab that from here. Lock closed. Copy. Paste. All right. Instead of lock closed, this is not a sign in button. This is like a generate button. So maybe we have like a magic wand or something, like wand icon, sparkle icon. Yeah, okay, sparkles, that works. Sparkles icon. There we go. And instead of saying sign in, we're gonna say generate. Okay, so last thing we need to do is export the component. Okay, save that. Alrighty. So you have our button, and now we just go back to our app, and we put our button that we just created. And let's take a look. Oops, it is full width. We don't want that. We can maybe add a div around this button and like limit the width. So we can say width 1/2. Okay, so now everything is in line. Right now our description box, our select, and our button are all the same width. Not beautiful, but it works. Cool. All right. So we have all the stuff in our front end built out, right? We've basically achieved this step of the app. Now we actually have to, get it to work. So let's go ahead and we need to, like, our next goal is to take whatever the user types in here and selects as the art style. When we click generate, we want to be able to send this to our backend. So that's our next big milestone. So to do that, we need to connect state, right? We need to have one state variable to capture this value in the text input, and we need one other state value as variable to capture whatever's in the select. So what we're going to do is going to do this at our home app, or sorry, at the higher level component. So let's get rid of this code that we don't need. I also don't think we're using this auth showcase, so I'm gonna get rid of this as well. I know we're not using it because it's grayed out, right? The text is it might be hard to see, but it's kind of grayed out there. And you can see even TypeScript has told us that it's declared, but it's never being used, so we're safe to delete it. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and we also don't need these variables that aren't being used. So I'm going to go ahead and create two state variables, right? So one state variable for the pet description. So let's just say description. And then the second argument is set description. And use state. Yep. So use state, we're going to start as an empty string. And for the select, in this case, the default is already selected for us. So maybe we should consider moving our list of art styles to here, this component, and then passing it down into select as props. That might be a little bit easier. Yeah, like we basically would take this whole, this data and move it out into our higher level component so that we could pass it in a little bit safer. Oh, and then we can just use this, right? We can just use selected as our state. Okay, so let's do that. We're gonna basically, right now the state is inside the select component, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna move it out into the home component. So let's go ahead and copy this stuff, or cut this stuff out of select. Let's go into our home component, paste this. So these are art styles. And then we're gonna pass these into select. Let's also grab this state variable. I'm gonna cut that. I'm going to paste it under our description. Okay, so now this selected is going to be our selected art style. It's probably a better way to name this, right? Because selected can mean many things, but let's just leave this for now. Selected, set selected. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create props and select because we want to pass in selected, on select, and art styles, right? Because right now we moved them out, so TypeScript is complaining that they're missing. So let's define those 3 props. So in select, we're going to open up parentheses, put our curly braces, and we're going to say selected, set selected, I think it was. Yeah, set selected, and then art styles. And we're also going to have to export this type because we need to have this type available in select. So I'm going to actually say export type art style. There we go. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to say selected is equal to an art style, I believe. Is this right? Let's double check. Selected. Okay, so selected can be art style or undefined. So that's important to know. So selected is art style. So, oh yeah, so it automatically fills it in for us. That's nice. Art style or undefined. So pipe undefined. And then set selected is basically, set selected is basically we take in an art style and we return void. I think an easy way to say this, we can say it takes an argument called style, which is equal to an art style, and then which returns void. This is pretty standard for state changing functions. It's just a function that takes in whatever selected is, and then it doesn't return anything. So that's fine. I wonder if it's going to get mad at us. And we might have to say or undefined. Let's just maybe do that for now to be safe. And then finally, we need the art style. So remember, art styles is a list of the art style type that we defined. So we're going to say art style, and then an array. So this is a list of art styles. Okay, so save this, scroll through. Okay, no more errors in select. That's good. Looks good so far. So now we go back to our index.tsx, and now we need to finish passing in what we just created into select, right? Because so we defined that in select, we want to pass in a selected, a set selected, and art styles. So let's actually pass those in. So selected is equal to selected. We didn't change the name. Set selected is equal to set selected. And what was the last one? Art styles is equal to art styles. So that is all the same. All right, save that. So far, so good. Okay, so now we have the state variable set up, and sorry, I forgot that the description. We need to do the same thing for description. We need to pass the description into text area. So let's go ahead and do that really quick. So to do this, we need to pass in a value and then a set value. So let's go ahead and define those props. Value, set value, and let's define. I keep using Vim bindings. So value is equal to a string, and set value, just like in set selected, it takes in whatever value is. So in this case, value is a string, and it returns void. Just like that. And then now, all we need to do is say value is equal to value. And on change, this is something specific for React. On change, we basically say set value on e.target.value, right? This is standard React stuff. Probably don't need this default value anymore. I'm gonna get rid of that. Yeah, that's fine. All right, save that, and then now we have to actually pass those in. So say value is equal to description, and then set value is equal to set description. Save that. Okay. So now, when this button gets clicked, to test that this works, let's have it console log the description and the art style. So this is our test to see if this works. So how we're gonna do this is, let's go ahead and we need to pass in an on submit button or on click or whatever into here. So we're gonna say on click. And on click is going to be equal to It's basically a function that takes in nothing and it doesn't return anything. Because all it's going to do is console log stuff. So we can just leave it like that. And on click, let's go ahead and prevent the default behavior because we don't want any funky things going on. Right, we don't want the page to refresh. And this is where we're going to call on click. We could probably name this a little better because I don't like the fact that it's named the same as this on click parameter, but you know, it's fine. All right, so we save that. And now we can define the on click button or on click function. So on click, all I'm going to say is I'm going to console log the description that we defined and the selected. So let's console log description and selected and save this. Okay, so now this is the ultimate test. We're going to type in something. We're going to select a style. And if we click generate, we should see something show up in our console here. Let me go ahead and clear this to make this a little easier. Let's click generate. Okay, so here's what we get in our console. Description, like the gibberish I typed in. And then we get the selected object. So photorealism. Okay, so far so good. We've successfully gotten the front end part to work, but now we have the back end. How much time do we have? Okay, we have like a 20 to 30 more minutes, so I think we'll make it. Okay. So now in this on click, this is where we're gonna want to call the back end. So basically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna pass in this description and the selected style into our API, our backend. And in our backend, that's where we're going to take these parameters, craft a DALL-E prompt, send it to DALL-E, get it back, and return the image. So that might sound like a lot, but hopefully it won't be too bad. So this is all the front end stuff for now. We're good on the front end. Let's go ahead and set up our backend. I know I've been talking about TRBC, but just because we're running close on time and there's really only one endpoint we have to deal with, let's just go ahead and create a new file in the Next.js API folder, which will be our backend endpoint. So let's just call this generate pet, like generate or generate pet. Let's just say generate. So generate.ts. And what we're going to do in generate is basically say, actually I have to look up how to do like a TypeScript Next.js API endpoint because I know they have their own types for it. API routes, here we go. Yeah, this is what we want. The following is an example of how to use built-in types for API routes. You can also type the response data. Okay, yeah, this works. Let's go ahead and copy this. Paste it here. So everything that happens in the function, we want to handle in here. This is also going to be specifically a post request. So we can also say like if rec.method equals post, or rather if it's not post, then do nothing, right? So we're maybe throwing error. So return rest.status 500.json and say like invalid request. Else, this is what we want to do. So this is where we would take in the user input and actually do something with it. So let's go ahead and try to wire this up first. Let's not worry about the DALL-E stuff. Let's first continue our testing by, instead of now console logging, we're going to actually send this data to our backend. So let's just test that first, if we can even send it to our backend. So I expect to receive a description and an art style. We're going to grab the art style from selected. So in our rec.body, we expect to see a description and maybe an art style equals, and this is going to come from our rec.body. And we're going to see if we can console log this in our server. Console log description art style. And I like to test things incrementally like this. It saves a lot of trouble. It gives you confidence that you're going in the right direction. And for now, since we're not doing anything yet, let's just go ahead and end it by going rest.status 201 because this is a post request. I think 201 is a little better for this. And let's not send anything for now. Cool. Let's go ahead and save this. All right, so basically now we're going to make a post request to our generate endpoint and see if this console log shows up. My light's kind of dark. 1 second. Gato. Oh, there we go. All right. Sorry, I didn't realize how dark it was already. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. We're gonna not write the function in here. Like, this is kind of messy. Let's go ahead and create the function like after the return. And let's go ahead and just make it an async function. This is just async is a little bit easier to use when you're dealing with like API calls. So we're gonna say async. This function we're gonna call generate pet, right? Because this function is gonna basically make a fetch call to our backend, and this is what's gonna kick off the OpenAI like AI generation. So generate pet, and generate pet basically is gonna make a fetch call. So we're gonna say await. I forgot a word. Async function. Async function generate pet, and we're gonna say await, and this is where we're gonna make our fetch call to /API/generate, right? Because our file's called generate and it's in our API folder. So Next.js makes it super easy to access by saying just say /API/generate. And then now we have to pass in some parameters, including the fact that this is a post request. So we say method post. And then I think we also have to say like the headers for application JSON. Let's see, fetch application JSON headers. This is one of those things that I've been Googling for like 8 years. Okay, yeah, this is what we want. Headers, content type, application origin. So I'm gonna yoink this, paste this here. Okay. So this is just what you need if you're gonna deal with JSON data, which, I mean, I almost always deal with JSON data when I'm writing APIs. So this is fine. So yeah, so this line is going to make a call to the generate endpoint, and now we actually need to send our data. So we can send our data in the body parameter. So we say body, and body is going to be equal to a stringified object. It has to be a stringified object specifically. So we can say JSON.stringify, and then we're going to open up this object, and we're going to pass in the description. And we're also going to pass in, remember, we explicitly expect to receive an art style key. So we have to say art style, and art style isn't just equal to selected, right? Art style is equal to selected dot name, because we only want the name. We don't care about the ID. And once again, we get this TypeScript error saying, hey, just warning you, art style could be undefined. And to that we say, don't worry, TypeScript. We're just going to say, we're going to add a question mark here to tell them, don't worry about it. Basically, it's going to send empty if selected isn't defined. Okay, so far so good. Now we actually have to call generate pet. So let's go back to our button and replace our console log with the generate pet call. Okay. All right, so that's a lot, but now it's time to test. We'll know it's working if we type in stuff, click generate, and then we now expect to see the console in our server, right? Like specifically in the terminal, that's where our server logs are going to show up, right? Before the console log was showing up here in our front end. Now we're passing that data down to the back end. So now we expect to see it in here. So let's go ahead and, well, I guess we can maybe change the style to like 8-bit, leave the gibberish. I'm going to click generate, and I expect to see, hopefully I expect to see a console log in here. So let's try it. Click. Okay, I see the description. So the description is correct, and the art style is 8-bit, so it looks good. Okay, so we've successfully passed the data from our front end to the back end. Okay, we're getting there, right? Getting there. But now it's time to actually do something with it, and this is where the API, the AI API is going to come in. So let's go and take a look at the Dolly API and see what we need. Read documentation. Image generation. Learn how to generate images with our Dolly models. So they provide 3 methods. You can create images from scratch based on a text prompt. I think that's what we want. You can edit existing images, or you can create variations of an existing image. So, we only care about this first one. So let's take a look at this. So here's an example of the API in action. Basically, this is Python. Let's use Node.js. we need to install the OpenAI package, which will give us this library. And I can see that there's a create image function that you pass in the prompt. So if you say a white Siamese cat, you can say how many images you want to get back and the size of your image. And it'll give you back something that looks like this, which includes the URL of the image. So as you can see, this is an example of what you would get back from the API. This is pretty funny. Studio photographic portrait. So this could be a good style to add to our options too. But as you can see, it's pretty straightforward, right? This is the only code that we need to like add here. But we need the OpenAI package, right? So let's start by installing the OpenAI package. So OpenAI node is what I'm going to Google. So we can go to npm and see the OpenAI package. So we can just run npm install OpenAI. I'm going to shut down the server. I'm going to run that npm I OpenAI. And I believe, let's check out the Git repository. I believe I need to pass in, I need to pass in the configuration, right? You need an API key to use this. Otherwise it won't work. So I already created an API key that I will destroy shortly after this session because I don't want my money to get drained. But basically I have an API key already. If you don't have one, go ahead and create an API account for free and you can go to your settings and get an API key of your own. So let's go ahead and, we want to basically copy this stuff. This is all like configuration. So copy this. Let's go to our generate function. I'm going to paste this up here. I don't like that it's using require. We have a mismatch kind of like here we're using import and here we're using require. So I'm going to actually change this a little bit. Import configuration OpenAI from OpenAI. Okay, there, it's a little bit more consistent. Okay, here that's basically saying if you have an environment variable called OpenAI API key, it's going to grab that. So this is like a recommended way to deal with API keys, right? Like I could just paste my API key in here, like pretend this is my secret API key. Like this is not good. This is not safe, right? Because if you push this code up to GitHub, everyone will be able to see your API key, which is very dangerous. I do not recommend that. But if you store it in an environment variable, the environment variable doesn't get pushed to GitHub, which means that it's a lot safer for your API keys. So we'll need to set that up as well. But as you can see, basically you set up the configuration, then you call this OpenAI API constructor, which lets you actually use this OpenAI package. And that's how we're going to call this stuff, right? So for now, we can go ahead and just copy and paste this snippet and paste this here. For now, it's just going to create a white Siamese cat, but that's okay. We're not worried about it too much. Let's go ahead and add a const there. It's mad that we're using await, but we're not in an async function. Easy fix. All we need to do is just add the word async in front of function, and then we can use await. And now it's complaining about like TypeScript stuff. I think they had a section here. Yeah, so working with TypeScript. If you're working with TypeScript, you may encounter some quirks. Okay, no, never mind. This is only for image variations. So if it's complaining, we can just put question marks, I think, on all these. This is probably not recommended, but this is fine. We'll deal with these type issues in a second. I think we can just use, we can break these up into if statements. Generally, you're not supposed to chain a bunch of unknown calls like this for TypeScript. Like TypeScript gets kind of mad. Maybe for now, just to keep it simple, we'll just console.log response. Or maybe like response.data. If, how should we do this? Yeah, that's great. Let's just console log response for now and deal with this later. Maybe specifically response.data, yeah. Console log response.data. Let's comment that out. Okay, so we get back an image response. That's fine. Let's get rid of this old console log. We don't need that. And yeah, that should be it. So I need to actually, add the API key. So I'm going to copy that API key that I created earlier. Now I'm going to go into the env file that Next.js already has for us. And now this is where we can add our API key. So I'm going to add a new section, say OpenAI. And I believe it said you have to match it exactly, right? If this is misspelled in any way, then it's not going to work. So OpenAI API key. So OpenAI API key equals, and I'm going to paste that value that I got from my OpenAI dashboard. But once again, this is not going to be the same one you have. And yeah, I highly encourage you to not leak this key anywhere because it might cost you money. Okay, so let's save that. And when I restart my server, that env file is already going to be loaded for us. So this should work just fine. Okay, so now our new test is when we click generate in our app, when we click generate here, we should see this console log come out. And remember, right now, we're just hard coding the prompt, right? The prompt is going to be a white Siamese cat. So we're just testing to see that we can get something back from OpenAI. And if that test is successful, then we're going to replace this prompt with our own text that we get from the user. And that will be it. So let's try that right now. I'm going to, I need to spin up my server. So npm run dev. Okay, so it's running. Let's type in some description. It doesn't really matter because this description is not even being used. Click generate. Nope. So we get all this weird data coming back as expected. Error. Uh-oh. What's wrong? Unauthorized. Maybe I didn't put in the right API key, or maybe I didn't save the right thing. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, so it's saying request failed with status 401. So that tells me that my authentication probably isn't working. I'm guessing like this is not correct for some reason. OpenAI API key. I did type that correctly, right? Yeah. Maybe. Oh wait, no. I know why. I misspelled my OpenAI key. See, like it's my key is like 2 characters off. I'm missing this SK in the beginning. So that's why it's not working. Apologies there. Let me go ahead and grab the correct key. There we go. Yeah, see, I was missing the SK. So if you do get a 401 error like this, like I did, that probably means you're something's wrong with your API key. Like either you typed it wrong or you're not even loading it correctly. So I think that will fix the error. So, okay, that's good. Let's go ahead and save that. Let's go ahead and try again. So I'm gonna click generate. Okay, so now it's taking a little longer. So that's what we like to see. It does take a little longer to generate these images. Okay, perfect. So we get back, this is what we get back. We get back this object with the date stamp of when it was created. And then we have a data array. And in data array, there's just one image URL. So if we command click this URL, open it, we have our AI generated image. And of course, it's just of a Siamese cat now, but we'll just take the user inputs and put those in the prompt. And that is what's going to put everything together. Okay, so we're almost done. Let's go ahead and, so our test was successful. Let's go ahead and wire this all up and make it work for real. So for our prompt, basically what I'm thinking is we basically just take the description, add a comma, and then say, add the art style add the art style after. It's pretty straightforward. We can play around with the prompts a lot later, but that should work for now. So I'm going to delete this prompt that we've hard coded. I'm going to put a template string. I'm going to say description, $sign to add variables, description, I can't type, description, comma, and then add another variable for art style. So it's going to take what the user types in here and then add an art style, and then it's going to, it's going to add that as a prompt. One is fine for now. The size is good. Now let's actually send back the data, right? We want to actually show the data on the page. Right now, in our response, we're not sending back anything. So to get something, first let's break this up into variables. So we can say const data equals response to grab the data portion of our argument. And as you can see, in data, there's another data key. That's kind of confusing. It's like data. Maybe another way to do this is just go like this. Yeah, there's 2 datas inside response. So it's like response to data. So this will give us that second data. And I believe that data is an array. Yeah, so that's going to be an array. So we can say if there's not the first item in the array, if there's no first item in array, then we can maybe just throw an error and say like rest.status like 500.json with a JSON with a message saying no images returned. Else, if there is an image that comes back, basically we want to save that first image. So data URL, data at 0 dot URL will be our image. And this is what we're going to send back. So let's actually grab that and send back maybe an object that says image and set that equal to our image URL. Okay. So kind of a lot, but this is basically just parsing the data that comes back and sending it back to the front end. So now, now our almost last test here is to test to see if our front end can get back this image URL. So in our home page, let's go ahead and actually get that data. So const response equals await fetch. And then to get the actual data, we have to say const data equals response.json. So this will give us the actual data, and then we can const log the data. And this is where we should see the image URL in this browser console log. Okay, almost done, I promise. But let's test to see if this is all working. So we're just gonna say like, I don't know, a small white Siamese cat in the style of, I don't know, 8-bit. Let's just say the 8-bit. So let's see if this all works. When we click generate, it's going to, take those parameters we put in, pass them to this fetch call. And on our back end, we're going to take those parameters, pass them to OpenAI here in this prompt, and we should get back an image. So let's see if this works. Generate. So it's going to take some time. And if all goes well, we should expect to see, oops, I forgot. It's still a promise, right? Whenever you see this, like data as a promise, that means you probably missed an await call somewhere. And I did. I should have put await here. The reason why this is happening is if I don't put await, basically response.json returns a promise. And the only way to get the JavaScript to actually process what the promise is you have to put await in front of it. It's not the only way to do it. That's kind of actually a false statement. But in this pattern, using async await, you have to put awaits in front of these calls. One of those weird things that you get used to eventually. Okay, let's try again. So I saved it. I'm going to hit generate again. Okay, so we get back an object, moment of truth. Yay, we have an image. Let's go ahead and copy this image. Oops. Well, it's a string right now, but let's paste it into our browser and see what we get. Oh, jump scare. But this is, kind of what we want. It's not super 8-bit. I probably could work on the prompt a little bit, but this will do for now. I wanted this to be more of an 8-bit style, but we'll figure out why that's not happening. But for the most part, it looks pretty good. Let's actually now have the image show up on the page. So the last thing we need to do is set up one final state variable for the image. So we're going to have a state variable that's like the image URL. And when our data comes back, we're going to set this image that we get to that state variable. And setting that will cause it to show up here. So let's do that really quick. So one more state variable, say const, maybe image, set image equals use state. And for now, image is empty. There's no image. So we're going to set that empty. And maybe under the button right here, this is under, like in this div, maybe this is where we can put image, source equals image. And maybe we only want this to show up if image exists, just to be safe. So we could say like if image exists, one way to do this, say if image exists, show the image. If it doesn't exist, show null. Like we don't want to show anything. Something like that. That's fine. I didn't like customize the style, but let's see how it works. So data comes back, and basically if there's an image property in data. Oh yeah, so this is kind of where TRP comes in handy. Right now, like the data is not typed. I believe if we want to type check the response, we can say this. We can basically define our typing and then add it to our next JS API response. I'm trying to decide if we should do that or not. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Let's do that. So we're gonna define the data that's gonna be returned, and we can say maybe like type data. Let's just do it under here. Type data equals, and maybe instead of saying image, let's just call everything data, because I know right now I'm sending either an object that says message or an object that says image, and that's kind of inconsistent. I'm going to unify these all by just calling it data. So the data type basically is just an object with the data property, and data is equal to a string like this. So now I'm going to change this to data, data, data. So now they're all going to return a data property, and data is a string. And now we can just say, you can use a generic to say the response that's going to be returned is always going to look like data. It's always going to be an object with the data property. So say a little bracket or a little greater than symbols, and we can say data here. Okay, so now check this out. Once all we need to do is just save this. Oh, that's mad because it's saying, hey, if image URL is undefined, this violates the type, right? So to fix this, we can just say, if image URL doesn't exist, if you say two pipes, you have it default to something else. So we're saying like if the image doesn't exist, just send back an empty string, right? And now the error is gone. And now check this out. Now when I look at the data type, well, it should work. So console log data. Huh. Oh, I guess the data's still not typed. That's weird. I expected it to be typed. I guess maybe now we have to say like this data is, we have to explicitly connect this to the data type. So let's export this type so that our front end is aware of it. And let's actually import the data type. So data, okay. So now this is us telling TypeScript that the data that's coming back is always going to look like data, which means we can just say set image on data dot data. Kind of confusing, but this helps appease TypeScript a little bit. It makes the communication between front end and back end easier by saying, hey, this is exactly what the response is going to look like. Because otherwise, as you saw, it's just going to default to any. Okay, so now it's going to set the image and it should show up. Okay, so now basically the app flow is complete. Let's go and actually test this. So I'm going to say a white Siamese with, let's say, like, I don't know, brown tipped ears. And then let's do it in the style of Monet. We're going to generate. Take a second. Okay, so now we have our image, right? It's a little big. It's not very Monet-esque. I'm starting to think that maybe this art style isn't being passed in correctly. So we can test this because, yeah, so far, like either my prompt is not working or like I'm not passing in a parameter correctly. Let's see why that's happening. But besides that, like it's almost there, right? We're almost there with our app. We just have a couple of kinks to work out. So selected. Okay, so that's sending properly. Let's take a look at our backend. Let's just console log the art style again. Or better yet, let's actually console log the prompt. Let's define a prompt variable. Be equal to this. Yoink. And then now we can just shorthand this to just prompt. And let's console log prompt to see what's going on here. Because I think our prompt is kind of messed up. Okay, let's try this again. Generate. Okay, maybe the problem is that we're just saying Monet. Maybe that's like not good enough for the AI to like understand what's going on. Maybe we have to say in the style of art style, like this. In the style of art style. Okay, let's try that. Maybe that will work. Let's do 8-bit. Okay, there we go. All right, that was the problem. So I guess our prompt wasn't quite there. Like just putting the description, comma, art style, like wasn't sufficient. And as you can see, once we added this in the style of, that's all we needed to get this thing to work. So yay! I'm quite happy with how this turned out. And of course, the users can just save this image if they want to take it. Let's do one more, just why not? Rembrandt. Yay, okay. It's not very Rembrandty. Yeah, it's kind of Rembrandty, but it's good enough. All right. That is basically it. We are over time now. Sorry that this was a little long, but this hopefully was a way to tie together kind of everything that we've learned. Well, technically not everything. We didn't really touch the database today, but it shouldn't be too bad to add that once you have the basic like skeleton down. And you probably, if you do make this a real app, you probably do want to add login because the thing about DALL-E is that it costs money, right? So if you just put this app on the internet and let anybody use it, your bill is going to get real big, real fast. So I encourage you to add some kind of like login if you do make this a real app. But so far it works pretty good, right? It works for our purposes, and yeah, that's kind of it. Hopefully the TypeScript stuff wasn't too bad, but hopefully this is also like a good way for you to see like how that's kind of scary how TypeScript is used like in a real app. And maybe you can even see that it has made our life a little bit easier. Like it was a bit of a hassle, right, to kind of like update stuff in the text area, or maybe like the select component and like update all those types. But it's worth it. I think it just makes your app a little bit more stable. All right. So that is basically it. And I don't really have much homework for y'all today. Besides, I hope you take this app as maybe inspiration for your own capstone project. And the capstone project, that is what is going to actually land you a job, right? If you just take a bootcamp curriculum and you don't build any big projects with it, I would say that's insufficient for getting a job. Only by kind of building your own project, planning it out, putting together all these technologies, and unfortunately struggling through it, that is what gives you the most learning, and that's what puts the most impressive project on your resume. So I highly encourage you to use this as your own inspiration to start putting together your own capstone projects. And hopefully you'll see why the T3 app or the T3 stack is so valuable for modern JavaScript developers or TypeScript developers. All right, so the QA will probably be shortened a bit today since there might not be too many queues. Also, we are way out of time, so I don't want to take up anybody's time further. But yeah, if nobody has any questions, we can go ahead and end it for today. I believe the streams are updated on YouTube, so this one's going to go up in like maybe tomorrow or Thursday. And Thursday is looking to be one of our last live sessions for a while. We're going to be talking about like career prep. So that's not going to be as technical. We're just going to talk about like career strategy, like what the state of the market looks like, preparing for a job. And yeah, that's basically it. I hope this was helpful. Hopefully this wasn't too crazy. I anticipate this is one of those things that the recording will be a lot more useful than maybe the stream itself. But hopefully you can see that, yeah, it's possible to build an AI app from ground up by yourself in about, more than an hour. It took me like maybe 2 hours to do this. But yeah, it's like using AI technologies. It's all just chaining together APIs, as you can see, and it's not too bad once you're used to this pattern. All right, so I think that is it for today. If there's no many questions, I guess I will begin winding down. But once again, thank you guys so much for joining, and thank you guys for hanging in there all the way through. Hopefully this was fun. Let me know if you do. I think I will publish this code on GitHub just to let people see the solution. So I will post on Discord when that's up. But yeah, if anything else, just reach out to me on Discord if you need anything. But I think that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for joining. This was fun. I'm actually kind of glad we went through the whole thing without running into any huge roadblocks. But yeah, hopefully this is a good way to kind of tie everything together. And yeah, I will see you guys on Thursday. All right, catch y'all later. Oops, that was the wrong screen. All right, yeah, I'll see you guys Thursday. And yeah, there's no other homework besides just to start planning your capstone. Please reach out to me if you are like if you need some help like planning your capstone or like designing it or anything. Like I'll have to chat about that. But yeah, like using GPT-3 or DALL-E, those are really great places to start for kind of thinking of your own unique project, because honestly, not a lot of people know how to use those technologies right now. And as you can see, it's not too bad to build something unique on top of it. So yeah. All right, cool guys. I will see you all on Thursday. Oh yeah, appreciate you watching. And yeah, no, I know I went super fast today. But yeah, hopefully the recording will like be a lot clearer once that's out. And yeah, I'll upload the code for this so that you have some solution code to reference. All right, cool everyone. I will see you guys Thursday. Take care. Take care.